All right, welcome to The Explainer. We're just swimming in information every single day, right? But what actually is it? I mean, really, it sounds like such a simple question, but trust me, the deeper you dig, the weirder things get. So today, we're going to tackle that head on. What is the actual meaning of information?
You've probably heard this before, or at least felt it. That's not information, it's just noise. And that really gets to the core of it, doesn't it? We have this gut feeling, this intuition, that information is the exact opposite of random chaos. It's the clear signal you're trying to find in all the static.
So, what's the magic ingredient here? What actually turns a random signal into something that carries real information? Where's that dividing line? Well, let's dig in and find out.
Okay, so Section 1. Information is not noise. Let's just start with that gut feeling we all have. Information isn't just random. It's about finding a pattern that actually means something, a distinction in the world that we can, do something with.
Okay, so it's really important to draw a line here. On one hand, you've got signal engineering. A communications engineer might tell you information is all about surprise value, basically how unlikely a signal is from a mathematical point of view. But that's not what we're after today. We're diving into the deep end with semantic information. We're talking about the actual meaning, the content, the stuff a message really carries.
Just think about the classic example, smoke means fire. Now, that isn't just some catchy phrase. It's a statement about a real, reliable, and definitely not random connection in the world. The smoke becomes information about the fire because that connection exists. It's stable. You can count on it.
So, the paradox of information. How do you take this idea of meaning and, make it formal? The first big attempt to create a theory for this was, honestly, brilliant. But it also led to some really, really weird conclusions. Okay, let's get into it.
So back in 1952, you've got these two philosophers, Rudolf Carnap and Yehoshua Bar Hillel. They come up with something called the inverse range principle. The core idea is pretty simple, actually. The less likely something is to be true, the more information it has. So a really improbable statement carries more information than a super common one. And that kind of makes sense, right? At first glance, anyway.
But, and this is a big but, if you follow that logic all the way down the rabbit hole, things get, weird. Take a logical truth, something like 2 + 2 = 4. It's 100% certain, right? So according to this principle, it has zero information. Okay, maybe we can live with that. But what about a total contradiction, like 2 + 2 = 5? That's impossible. It has a 0% chance of being true. So the theory says it must contain an infinite amount of information. Yeah, infinite. And this whole thing creates two pretty famous problems in philosophy. The first one is called the scandal of deduction. I mean, if 2 + 2 = 4 has no information, how can a really complex, difficult math proof ever teach us anything new? And then there's the paradox itself, the Bar-Hillel-Carnap paradox. How on earth can a blatant contradiction, pure nonsense, be the single most informative thing you could possibly say? It doesn't sound right, does it?
So what did Bar Hillel and Carnap say to all this? Did they backpedal? Nope, they doubled down. They basically said, yeah, that's right. They argued that for something to be semantic information, it doesn't actually have to be true. They believed a false statement, even a flat-out contradiction, is super informative because it makes such a huge claim about the world. Their defense, in their own words, was that a contradiction asserts too much. It is too informative to be true. Wild, right?
All right, Section 3. Must information be true? As you can imagine, this idea that information could be false or that nonsense could be the most informative thing, it didn't exactly sit well with a lot of other philosophers. And this led to a really strong counter-argument, one that tries to solve the whole paradox with one simple but really powerful rule. And this is where the philosopher Luciano Floridi enters the picture with his veridictical thesis. And his idea is refreshingly direct. He says, look, for something to be called information, it just has to be true. Period. It needs to be well-formed, it needs to be meaningful, and it has to be factual data. So under this way of thinking, a contradiction like 2 plus 2 equals 5, it's not information. Not at all. Why? Because it's false. Simple as that.
So let's just look at these two ideas side by side because it really clears things up. On one side, you have Barhilla and Carnap, where information is all about how improbable something is, even if it leads to some bizarre paradoxes. On the other side, you have Floridi, who says it's all about truthful data. And when it comes to the big questions like contradictions and falsehoods, they are polar opposites. This is a really fundamental split in how we even think about what meaning means.
But Floridi's theory has this really clever little twist. He makes a distinction between information, which, remember, he says has to be true, and informativeness, which is more about how useful a statement is. Think about it this way. Say you're planning a party for 200 people. If someone tells you 201 people are coming, that statement is technically false, but it's way more informative for your planning than if someone tells you, oh, between 100 and 200 people are coming. The first statement isn't information in Floridi's book, but it's definitely useful.
Okay, so how words get meaning. This whole debate about truth versus probability, it's not just some abstract puzzle for philosophers. It actually takes us right to the heart of how our own language works. I mean, how do words even do what they do? How do they connect to the real world and give us meaning?
Okay, check this out. It's a classic example from philosophy. If I say, Iggy Pop is Iggy Pop, well, duh. It tells you absolutely nothing new. It's a tautology. But what if I say, Iggy Pop is James Newell Osterberg Jr.? For a lot of people, that's genuinely informative. You just learned something. But wait a minute, both sentences are about the exact same person. So why is one totally useless and the other is a cool piece of trivia?
This little puzzle gets at something philosophers call modes of presentation, or MOPs. And the key takeaway is this. Meaning isn't just about the thing out there in the world, it's about how that thing is presented to us. Iggy Pop and James Newell Osterberg Jr. are just two different ways of pointing to the same guy. They're two different paths to the same destination. And that difference in the path? That's where the information is hiding. It's not just the destination, it's how you get there that matters.
And this brings us to our last big idea, the concept that kind of ties all of this together, the channels of meaning. It's an idea that connects the smoke and the fire, our language, and even those logic puzzles, all under one big roof. The theory of information channels.
Let's walk through this using our old friend, the smoke and fire example. It's a simple 4-step process. Step 1, a fire starts. That's the source. Step 2, smoke becomes visible. That's the signal. Step 3, that reliable physical connection between smoke and fire, that's the channel. And finally, step 4, you see the smoke, you understand what it means, you're the receiver. That's it. That's how information flows from the world, through a channel, and into our brains.
So an information channel is really the bedrock of meaning. It's that reliable connection, usually a cause and effect thing, that guarantees a signal isn't just junk, isn't just noise. It ensures the signal is genuinely tied back to a source. And this idea, this concept of a channel, is what lets us build theories of meaning for everything from language to how we think.
So you can really see the journey we've been on here, right? We started this whole quest to define meaning by looking at probability, asking, how unlikely is this? When that got us into some paradoxical trouble, the focus shifted over to truth, asking, is this thing even factual? And that, in turn, has led a lot of thinkers to focus on causality, to ask the most important question of all, what reliable real-world channel actually produced this signal in the first place?
And that whole philosophical journey leaves us staring down a very, very modern and frankly pretty urgent question. Think about it. We live in an age of AI, of rampant misinformation, of deep fakes, an age where it's scarily easy to create a convincing signal that has no real source behind it at all. So how can we be sure our information channels are telling us the truth? How do we know if what we're seeing, what we're reading is a genuine signal or just incredibly sophisticated, convincing noise?